Ready? So we're going to roll in 5, 4. Welcome to the Ham Radio Workbench Podcast, your biweekly deep dive on technical topics of interest to the radio amateur. Well, on this show, we have a special guest, and that is Patrick KJ7SZU, and he's the guy who runs the company Geochron, and he's going to talk all about their amazing clocks and information presentation gear. And we'll get to that in a little bit. If this is the first time you've joined us, we're happy that you're here. We have over 229 episodes in our back catalog, and you can check them all out on our website at hamradioworkbench.com. You can also talk to us and our other listeners on our Facebook group, Ham Radio Workbench. You can go to our Discord with our Never Expires link from our website. And on Discord, we have multiple channels of information and people talking about what's on their workbench and their projects and asking technical questions and having a great old time. And you can also chat with us live and direct on the Brandmeister DMR Talk Group 31075 or the All-Star Node 55915. On this particular episode, we're trying something new. We're actually videoing, recording this show. So this is not only going to be delivered like normal as an audio podcast, but we're also going to drop this into YouTube. So you'll get to see what it looks like when we're creating the show and
how the sausage is made.
Yeah, this is how the sausage is being made.
How the dinner plate was sitting over here.
So before we start with announcements, I want to welcome everybody. So first off, our guest of honor here, Patrick. Good evening, Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
So we have 101 questions about the Geochron and the history of it and what it is and what it does and why would I want one and all that. They're rather amazing. And I've got a big wall that needs one. So so you can pitch me on it on today's show.
Well, I know a guy. That's good.
Perfect. Also, we have Mike, VA3MW. Hey, Mike.
Good evening or good afternoon or whatever it is from snowy Toronto.
So how are things? Are you back from Florida hamventioning or whatever it's called?
Yeah, I finally took a day off. It was today. I went skiing. But yeah, we had a great time, as Patrick will attest, because we met last weekend and the weather was amazing down there and great turnout. But yeah, all good.
Oh, very good. And we also have Vince, VE6LK. Hey, Vince.
Good evening, noon, y'all. How is it?
How's what?
It's
great.
We'll just go with that.
Actually, we were channeling Alberta because yesterday and today we got snow here in Portland. So we were snowed in for 2 days. It was great. The not so great part was we lost power for about 6 hours. So that was exciting. But aside from that, it was a load of fun.
Yoy, that's not great. Well, that's what backup generators are for, right?
Yeah, I was shopping for one and it's on the wish list. I'm just not sure if I need one or not.
I thought you had one at your new place.
No, I got a quote, and like anything else, you start out with I want a little thing, and then by the time you're done shopping, you're going to get the big thing. Then you're confronted with the big price list, and you're thinking, I don't know if I need that big thing so badly, so I get nothing. So
now you've been through 6 hours of pain, so maybe you're reconsidering it.
Yeah, actually, it's a really good sales pitch. Is going through 6 hours of no power when it's snowing, then you reconsider your decisions.
Yeah, indeed. So, I can appreciate that.
So Patrick, did you get snow where you are across the river from where we are in Portland?
I'm looking at about 3 inches, and I'm just about 30 minutes away from you and actually lived real close to you here recently. Were you here for the big storm 4 years ago where we didn't have power for like 4 days?
No, my neighbors told me all about it, but no, we moved here 2 years ago. And so we saw snow in December the first year and a little bit less last year and none this year, but it saved up for like today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we really haven't had a bad time at all with the snow. But yeah, 4 years ago, I guess, was quite the event.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
By Alberta standards, it was probably a walk in the park, Vince. So
well, but still, it's all relative. But dang, if you were out if there was a big 4-day outage, George, I would highly suggest that that really moves up your list.
Yeah, I think it probably will. So I got a few announcements to make before we dive into introducing you in more detail, Patrick, and our conversation. So a couple things I want to mention. First off is last year we did Ham Radio Workbenches on the Air, or HRWB for short. which started out as kind of like a joke, and it turned into a thing. And everybody that participated had a blast. And so it went from being kind of not a thing to a thing. So we're going to do it again this year. We talked about it, I think, a couple of episodes ago. It will be Sunday, March 16th from 1800 to 2200 UTC. A lot more detail will come out later. We're going to make ourselves available on different bands and different modes and try to get people to operate and make contacts. And one of the things that came up in planning for Herboda is to try new technology, because after all, this is the ham radio workbench, if not here, where? So a good friend of mine, Alan, N7AKG, has been working on a contest scoring system, a live contest system. So the idea was, that when he mentioned it to me about a year ago, he said, it's very frustrating when I'm on a contest. I want to know in real time how I'm doing. A week after the contest, I could care less. During the contest, I'd like to know. So we should do something about that. And so we was him, not me. And so he went off and started working on a piece of software with another fella. And they've come up with something that they call ham radio instant scoring service. And it's a cloud-based service. And you go to this website, you can create a contest. You can upload your log data in real time, and it'll show you how you're doing against whoever else is in the contest. And the thing that I thought was pretty cool about this is you could graft this onto a normal contest. Like if, let's say the four of us were all in the CQ worldwide sideband contest, we could also feed our logs to this thing and just have a little challenge between the four of us in addition to being in the real contest. Or we could do something like, Vince, you took it on yourself to make X number of CW contacts. You could throw down the gauntlet and say, okay, I'm going to make at least, 10 CW contacts a month. And I challenge everybody else, all my buddies, and all your buddies can log in and they could register, and you can have your own little private contest. So cool. It's really cool. And it's going into beta. And I was talking to Alan about Herboda, and he said, well, why don't we use the scoring system as part of Herboda? So right on. So it's going to be beta tested with Herboda this year. And if you want to find out more about the scoring system, you can go create an account and play around with it right now. It's up and running in beta. And the URL is hiss.dtmc.ca. So that's Hotel India Sierra Sierra Delta Tango Mike Charlie Charlie Alpha. And for those of you, half of you here on the call, you'll note the .ca extension because Mike, one of the other developers, is in Canada. So
not this Mike.
Not you, different Mike, different. Yeah, but
and there's no tariffs either on this.
Let's not go there.
Oh my!
No, please.
Yeah, you're gonna ruin my day. So anyway, so that's Herboda. So check it out.
I had to get it out of the way.
Thank you. We're gonna publish more on Herboda on the Ham Radio Workbench webpage. Also, a little bit more about the scoring system and all that. So it should be a blast. So I'm looking forward to that. The other announcement that I want to make, actually I got three. Number two is there's some trade show updates here. So it looks like we are going to be at Hamvention, and we'd mentioned this before, but we just found out that we're going to get two booths next to each other, and the we is Ham Radio Workbench and Pactena and Sierra Radio Systems and Halibut Electronics will have two booths right next to each other, and they'll be booths 3011 and 3012 in Building 3.
So is that like half a booth each?
No, it's like one whole booth each.
Oh, okay.
But adjacent, so that when one of us gets a corn dog break or whatever, the other guy can kind of cover.
Yeah.
So I always thought, I had booths in the past at Hamvention. I always thought if I was not a vendor, I would still get a booth for another reason, for the parking. For the parking ticket. And I just put like a blow up palm tree and a lawn chair and a cooler and just like have a place to hang out. That's not what we're doing. So don't plan on that. But anyway.
The cooler or the lawn chair or the blow up tree?
Well, I have to reconsider some of those. The cooler might come.
Because a blow up tree will fit in a piece of luggage. Just saying.
That's true.
All right.
Also, it turns out that the weekend after Hamvention, if that wasn't enough radio, the weekend after is CPAC. CPAC is the Northwest ARRL convention in Seaside, Oregon. And so we're also going to be at CPAC.
That's a great little show. I do that one every year.
Do you?
It's the only one that we sell product directly at, and people are super nice. It's a small venue, and they take care of their vendors really well. They're like, "Would you like some coffee? Would you like some cupcakes? Would you like some donuts?" They're really great. Whereas, like at most places, they're like, you're one of thousands. There, you're one of dozens, and it's a really great show.
Oh, that's good to hear. So I went there last year for the first time, just as a passenger. I wasn't a vendor or anything, but so it's good to hear that you're there too.
Yep.
Cool.
Maybe I'll get to go this year.
That'd be great, Mike. So yeah, last year I hung out in the Flex booth. That was fun.
I'll put in a vote to go. So.
Oh, that'd be great. One last little announcement. We also have our DC power outlet strip kits in stock at DigiKey. So if you need one of those, go to digikey.com and search for HRWB 101, and you'll find the outlet strip kit. So, okay, those are all the announcements. And so, Patrick, I want to introduce you as the head guy of Geochron. So we'll talk all about what a Geochron is, but I don't know if head guy is the right title. What's your appropriate title?
If you email me, it says Head Wrangler at the bottom, because that's what I feel like.
I noticed that.
Yeah,
I noticed that.
That's weird because at Wrangler in Britain, it means something different. It means you argue with people over time. But in North America, it means like I'm just handling problems all the time. So yeah, that's funny.
And every time we say Wrangler, that's my dog's name, and my dog makes an appearance, and he's right beside me. So, are you coming for the treat or not?
So,
anyway.
So in addition to being Mr. Geochron, so do you do much ham radio stuff too? I mean, it sounds like you're really busy with that stuff. So do you get any ham radio time?
I get a little bit of time, but a lot of that time is actually face to face. So my claim to fame is I've done over the last 3.5 years, I've visited 66 Geochron owners on my motorcycle. And this is a big investment in time, but it's super cool to sit down with them, have dinner, maybe a beer. Sometimes I'm spending the night in their upstairs bedroom and then heading on to the next state. And they know I'm coming, but this is my favorite thing to do, both for ham radio and for Geochron. And a lot of them are ham radio guys. Okay,
so if I bought a Geochron, should I expect at some point a ring at the front door and, there's Patrick with a sleeping bag? Like, I've just come to check out your Geochron.
Yeah. Well,
how did you wind up coming to do that? I mean, what was the
Sure. And I'm showing a screen right now that just shows sort of my paths in multiple segments over a lot of the trip. So we have this contest at the end of the year, which says like who you submit your photo and you get to win a prize if you got the best looking shack with a Geochron in it. And so I'll be like, where are you from? They're like, oh, I'm in Tennessee. And I'm like, great. Well, you should come and I'm like, let me put a pin on it. So my Google Maps is covered with pins of people who have said, sure, visit me if you're in town. And so when I'm heading that direction, then I'll look at my map and say, oh, there's 3 that are within 50 miles of there. And then I reach out to them. And then inevitably somebody says, yeah, come on by. And it turns into a big cultural experience. It's super fun.
Neat.
And while you're here, we need a new firmware update.
And that's a layer, isn't it?
Yeah, there might be some customer support that happens while I'm there, but some of them are mechanical owners, and so that's something that I can't service on site. That's in Colorado Springs.
Oh, we'll have to get into that. So what's like the most memorable visit?
I'll just pick one from last week. So my second bike was stored in Houston, and then I rode from Houston to Orlando to hook up with Mike at the Hamvention, and on the way I stayed with Captain Nick. And so I walk into Captain Nick's house. It's in Alabama. It's on the coast. It's really beautiful. He's got a guest house. It's the second time I've stayed in a guest house. And so he's like, and then he walks me into his front room, and it's just Navy memorabilia all over the place. So the trick with Captain Nick was he was a captain of 2 Navy frigates, including the one where the Hunt for Red October was filmed on. And he was the captain of that frigate while I was, like in his career. And so he had a Geochron because, of course, the Hunt for Red October features a mechanical Geochron in the boardroom with James Earl Jones. So it's like we stood there and looked at that Geochron and chatted it up, and we went out and we had seafood. We had a great time. He told me all kinds of stories about meeting actors on the ship, and it was super fun. So this is not uncommon.
That's very neat.
Yeah.
Well, what a great experience.
Last week.
And was he a ham too, by the way?
No, he wasn't a ham. So no, he didn't show me around to his ham shack. No, that would be pretty common too. A lot of people that I visit, about 50% of our customers are ham radio, and so a lot of times it's like, check out my ham shack. On my way from San Diego to Houston on the leg before, I was in Midland, Texas, and I went to go visit a guy, and we went back, and it was like bachelor living in a small house in Midland, Texas, and then he told me a story about we were in ham shack. He's sitting there, cables coming all out of the wall. It looked like a total 20-year ham shack. And he explained to me that he was called up in 1988 to rescue a small girl that had fallen down a well because he was a lineman, and they had to move the electrical cables out of the way. And so the police found him because he was in the neighborhood next door, and they grabbed him. And then they were digging an emergency shaft next to this well to rescue this little 18-month-old. And he said, by the way, I see what you're doing. I moved the cables. I'm actually president of the Spelunking Society of Texas. And they're like, so if you want me to go down that hole and rescue that girl, I'll do that. Yep, we'll get right back to you. So we waited around for a couple hours. News trucks, CNN showed up, and he wound up being one of the first people on the team that rescued baby Jessica. And if you're my age, and that's in my 50s, remember that situation. That dude is an awesome ham, a Geochron owner, and opened up his house to me and told me his whole story. And I love that deeply.
Oh, wow. Now, how did you make contact with him? How did that come about?
He sent me a picture. I'm like, where are you? He's like, I'm in Midland, Texas. I'm like, I'll put a star on it. And so I put a little pin, Google Maps, put a little pin on it. And then, 3 years later, I'm like, hey, I'm heading through Midland. Can I visit you? And it's just an open-ended question. And then I didn't know if, sometimes there's dinner, sometimes there's something else, but I just walk in and I don't know what's going on. But as it turns out, he had a Geochron, but he told me this fantastic story. He's at the end of his career. And who cares if he had a Geochron? I love the people. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
That's very neat.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, you have to start doing that when you're going to trade shows and stuff. Just like ring people up. Hey, I'm Mike from Flex Radio. You should have me over for dinner.
You got a Flex Radio. I'll visit you.
I might be hind and quartered.
No, they'll just be asking you for a software update.
All right. Yeah, but Patrick's absolutely right. We met some, if you watch social media, I don't know if there's a Geochron page on Facebook. I should look, but I'm going to be blunt. We've talked about this before, Patrick, so don't get excited, but we get these keyboard warriors on social media, but to a person every time, as you know, when you walk into a ham fest, people come up, shake your hand. I love whatever you do, whatever you driver, for me, it's the videos. For you, the whole package presentation. And George, you've gotten it, and we all have gotten it, how humbling it is. Oh, I love you on the workbench. So that's to all of us, because I don't necessarily talk the most, but people have big lawns, I've learned, which is a joke about cutting lawns and listening.
Well, Patrick,
it's fun. It's really awesome.
Like Mike is saying, when you're especially if you have a reason to talk, like you make a great product like that and people would love to talk with you. But then you make the effort to reach out and you meet all kinds of interesting people. And I've, like you guys, I've been really lucky to meet some really amazing people, quite by accident, because they, bought a product of mine and asked a question or whatever. And, I made such really great friendships with a lot of people that, you never would have met otherwise. So, so that's really cool that you reach out to them.
That's how we met.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh,
well, that too.
Okay.
Actually, Mike and I met,
Mike.
like 20 years ago, Mike, when Mike was knee deep in the middle of building repeaters. And I built repeater control systems. And, we got to talking and, kind of went from there. And it's amazing, the people you meet and the friendships you make over the years, especially when you're all spread all over the place.
Yeah.
So Patrick, do you do any ham radio stuff? I know you're kind of busy with all that. Are you on the air at all? Have a station set up or on the motorcycle?
Yeah. So I think I was over at the booth. I go around the booths and trying to figure out which one can Bluetooth with my Senna. So if anybody out there knows how to Bluetooth a ham radio on 12 volts with my Senna, I want to be motorcycle mobile, KJ7SZU. Let's go. I think that would be the coolest thing to make the whole package complete for all my travels. In addition to that,
you did go to ICOM, right? I saw you walking around with your helmet.
I did, and I tested out my helmet. Like, doot, 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 and, hello, and there goes the Senna, and they're testing out. You know what? It didn't work. So I have yet to find the right one. But I spend most of my time working on Geochron. I didn't grow up a ham, but I got involved with Geochron, and I realized that about 50% of our customers were ham radio, and I better dang well get educated about what ham was all about. So I got everybody was like, you can't talk to us unless you get your license. So I got my license. And so anyways, I'm slowly getting into the hobby. I spend way more time on Geochron than I do doing actual like on the air, but it's getting more important all the time. And I'm looking forward to my life maybe slowing down a little bit so I can have some time in the evening, do some DXing. That'd be great.
Well, we'll dig into more about what can the Geochron do, especially for ham radio stuff.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, so Mike, maybe we can start with you on what's on your workbench.
I have a test question for both you and Vince. What do you think has been the most fragile piece of equipment I have? And in case you don't know, I run remote operations. I teach remote HF operations. I've been doing it for 2 decades. I started in 2005. And of all the equipment, what device do you think has taken me off the air more than once? And I'll give you a hint. It's not the ISP.
Yeah, so I've looked at the show script and I know what the answer is to this, what you typed in.
Oh yeah, I should have typed it.
No, that's okay. My choice would have been part of your internet infrastructure and not necessarily your ISP in particular.
Right. George?
That would have been my guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Boy, everything is so reliable these days.
Almost
Everything is so reliable.
It's probably not the radio. It's probably not the power supply. Probably not the.
You're getting warmer.
But you're not going to get it because you're going to go down a rat hole.
No, I give up. What is it?
The friggin'
George,
UPS.
go down a rat hole?
Oh, you use the UPS?
Well, I often in the summer, I have a UPS in line just for power bumps and power conditioning, except on the radio. But for the pies and the computers and stuff, the web switches are on a UPS. So that's worked out really well until a number of years ago. I think we had a power outage or the UPS froze, which wouldn't be, my world, not impossible, but it got too cold. And I could live with it not doing UPS work, but when these things get grumpy, they don't give you any power and you don't get them back. So every time now in the winter, I either take the UPS and you've seen the box and I put it on top of everything. And it's just a small one, 250 watts or whatever, just to keep things sort of a little conditioned if it gets cold or whatever. So let's fast forward to today. I'm in Collingwood. I'm skiing. It's a 2-hour drive north of here. And my wife texts me and she says, the power went out. And he goes, and the hydro guys, which is what we call the power guys here in Ontario, because we produce most of our energy from falling water. The hydro guys are here right away. We have one of those buried substations that sits at the end of your driveway. It's about 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. Oh, okay. No big deal. So later on, she's back home and I notice that none of my radios in the house are up and running, and I need to reassign one for the people at the Yuma Ham Fest to use it for a demo. And I, of course, need to log into my computer here. And so Carolyn's back home, and I go, is my computer's on? Because I can't ping anything. The VPNs are working, but they're in the other side of the house, but I can't ping the one computer I need, the big, Lenovo, Legion, gazillion. Anyway, he goes, no, it's all dark. Crap. Okay, well, push the button. Nothing happens. Push the button again. Nothing happens. Calls me on FaceTime now because you know what it's like sending your non-electrically inclined YL or XYL into your shack to push a button. Okay, is the UPS on? Well, where's that? Okay, so no. Okay, push the button. Nothing happens. Push the button. Nothing happens. And I've got a label on it. I changed the batteries in these UPS 3 years ago. Sure enough, it's dead. So now I have to get Carolyn to unplug the computer from the UPS. We all know what it looks like behind our desk.
We haven't seen it for years. I'm not sure we do know what it looks like.
Yeah, well, and so she eventually finds the black cord amid all the black cords, and of course the wall socket right there is full. So you can't. Well, what do you want me to unplug? Well, I don't know. It's like, anyway, okay. She powers up the computer. It comes online. So right after that, back on. And I've changed the batteries in this one before, and I have found dry cells like those 8 amp hour ones. If you buy them online, you have to test them. So hats off to the guys over. We've talked about battery cycling or testing at. Why can't I think of it? The box is over there. Anyway, that make the battery power testing thingies. I'll look at the name in a minute and put it in the show notes.
West Mountain Radio, the CBA.
Thank you. The CBA 3 I have, or 4. I've blown one of those up too. And but a couple of those 8 amp hour batteries I got, which must have been pulls off fire systems or whatever, they have like 2% capacity when you test them. And so that's it. I'm ordering a new one, the latest, greatest buttons and features. So in all my world, UPSs are the most fragile piece of equipment I've used.
One of my best practices has forever been the output of a UPS is plugged into a single power bar. I don't plug a whole bunch of crap into the back of the UPS, exactly for this reason, so that I can bypass it quickly.
Well, funny you mentioned that. Sitting over in the junk pile, it showed up on Amazon one day, was one of these big power bars. They're like this big, and you can put about 8 wall cubes around it, and there's about 16 U-grounds in the middle. It was like 60
Does it come with a 911 label on it called the fire department?
Oh yeah. I'll see how hot it gets.
Holy.
So when I recabled it, well, all that stuff's low current stuff, right? So when I recabled it, and this is 10 to 8, right? We're meeting at 8. And the power, right. and I'm because I just got back before the show, and got it all up and running. Now we're down to one cable. There is no UPS, but that will be here tomorrow when we shut everything down. And so for all my ham radio friends that run remote, you have this test you have to do every 6 months. And if it's the remote, you're going to walk over to the wall and you're going to turn the power off and wait 6 hours and turn it back on and make sure everything comes back up. In all seriousness, this is the most common call we get from a customer who's running remote is, well, my radio disappeared. I said, well, could the power have bumped? Well, I don't know. Well, did you test the power bumping? And, did the computer boot back up to this? Yeah. So that you have to do this lights out test, even if you only do it for a few seconds.
Yeah. And you can do a lights out test without having to find the breaker. Again, the low tech way is to just unplug the UPS from the wall. And check its runtime.
Yeah,
so
anyway.
I got a question for you, Mike. So I can see where having a UPS for your desk setup would be useful because you have a big monitors and a desktop computer and you want to handle a brownout or whatever. But for the remote station, why would you use a UPS? And the reason why I ask is I think the way I would do it is I would run everything off of 12 volts and I would just run the whole remote station off a big battery, like a big LiPo 4 battery, and then just be constantly float charging the battery.
That's another way to do it. I just have always used when I try to say I'm smart lazy. I wasn't looking for more work, and generally they've been fine. But we put the UPS under the desk and we never think about it again. Mm-hmm. And if you've got one and you can't remember how old it is, I guarantee the battery. I guarantee the batteries have swelled in there that you can't get them out.
Yes.
Some of them. So have a look.
And so as long as we're talking about UPSs, let's remember best practice for a UPS. If you add up all your devices and you have 200 watts of peak draw, don't buy a 250 UPS, buy a 500. I put 1500s in everywhere because frankly, they are not that much more expensive.
What did I pay? I bought 2 of them.
And I get so much better runtime.
$233, I think, today from Amazon. And they'll be here tomorrow.
So $233 Canadian. So, about $1.50 US.
Yeah. And so that's all I've been doing. And then I've been traveling. So a ton. And I had a great time in Orlando. Probably, you could argue about it, but I think the second biggest ham fest in the US.
So I saw you did a video on remote station operating. That was this weekend, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I did a presentation, and I always try to do presentations everywhere I go, and mine's usually on remote operating, or I've got another one called, Not Your Dad's Super Het HF radio, direct sampling versus super Het design. And so this time we actually recorded it. I stuck my phone down on on a stand, and I put some lavalier mics on, and I recorded myself, and then I recorded Steve Hicks, our CTO, N5AC. I have to finish that edit. That was live on my screen before the power failure, so God knows what state it's in. But
what are you editing in?
Premiere Pro.
I think you'll be okay.
I'll be okay, but it's okay. It's
so.
in a good. It's fine, but. They said, "Well, have you released it yet?" Well, you know what? I want to overlay the slides so that you can read them. Right now, it's just one of those oblong shots with good audio. So it's just got a couple hours of editing in it. So those are available on YouTube in the Flex Radio YouTube channel as well if you want to see it. And I really worked hard on that part about, the foundation of building a remote. And it was almost zero talk about radios, more about command and control. And the reason why I always run a computer at the remote site. And I go into great lengths of why that's the right thing to do. And if you ever worked on IT like Vince, you know that if you can log into the computer at the remote site, it's like being there. So you can always do a lot of diagnostics, but I spent a lot of time describing that. So I don't know, George, if you had a chance to watch it or not. Or
Yeah, I did. I actually didn't even know you were doing the presentation, and almost found it by accident, and started to watch it. And there's a lot of really good tips in there. And I appreciate the fact that you talk about sometimes like how a Flex would work, but also you made a big point about how the content is pretty universal, whether it's a Flex or some other brand.
Yeah,
of
I mentioned
radio.
ICOM and stuff. Yeah.
So
I might have shown the station controller near the end.
I did catch that. Actually, once I saw the video, I scanned for that. So yeah,
I bet you did.
Appreciate the plug, man. But the rest of the video was good too.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things too. In remote operating, trying to send CW by remote operation is really hard. And you'd think, in our brains, you go, oh, we'll just send a whole bunch of on and offs from a, RTS and DTR, and we'll just toggle those right over the internet. But the internet speed is incredibly elastic, as I'm sure Patrick knows too, because he moves a lot of data from his servers to your Geochron, and I want to hear about that and type of thing. And the Flex does. And probably Elecraft does the same thing. They send timing elements in milliseconds. So they tell the radio, hey, go to transmit for 13 milliseconds. Okay, come back to receive for 14 milliseconds. Now go to transmit for 40 milliseconds. Well, heck, that's almost an A, type of thing. And I jokingly say, if you're sending from a bug or you send like crap, we'll send the crap out on the air for you. And whereas the other way, and not to take anything away from the Winkeyer guys, but they have a built-in decoder when you do Winkeyer remote, and then it sends the ASCII letter A, so it's always one character latent. So it's got to wait. So that's fine until you get to 0. Da 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 da. Oh, a 0. It's like, so this is how Steve N5AC and his team did it. And over 10 years ago, they designed it that way. So, and then we've had some guys who have built the same technology into a Arduino, through an IP connection to the radio, or in a client server to another Arduino over TCP IP. So that's N5 November Hotel Juliet Max, who drafted up that code. Really slick stuff.
So is that something that's open source people could play with?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, look for Morconi, Morconi. I'll drop that in the show notes for everybody.
Morconi, not to be confused with Marconi or macaroni.
Right. And by the way, Max goes by a US and an Italian call, India 8 November Hotel Juliet. And I could actually share my screen. I forgot we're live, but that's we'll do that for another.
Okay. Anything else, Mike?
No, or video. We're not live. No, that's it.
All right, Vince, what's on the bench?
What's on the bench is a whole pile of 3D printer poop. And so,
Literally.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
oh man. So I took over ownership of my buddy's old printer, and it's 5 or 6 years old. It's not fast by today's standards, but it was well upgraded, and it was a workhorse printer for him. And so I've decided to dip my toe into the world of 3D printing and see what I can come up with. So I've successfully printed a few things out. And naturally, we 3D print cases for our Morse Tutor kit that we sell online. And so we're just now getting into customizing that front panel with people's call sign and name, or call sign and call sign in text and call sign in CW. Right on the front panel, because that seems apropos somehow. Anyway, I've spent today has been just like the most hugely frustrating day. What's the best 2 days in a boat owner's life? When they got a boat and when they got rid of it. I'm beginning to think it's very similar for a 3D printer owner's life. What's the best day, they get is when they get it and when they throw it out the window because they're frustrated with it. And I had come super close to throwing mine out the window today. There was just anyway, they're cantankerous devices. It seems to be a good gearhead hobby, so that meshes nicely into ham radio. It's ham adjacent. There's some gear involved, and I've already printed, like a thing that goes on my POTA Explorer 20 mast, a guy ring that somebody else designed, and a little clamp that that was linked off of Thomas's website for an Elecraft AX1, goes on the side of a picnic table, and it you plug in the BNC whip.
Where's your cubic centimeter?
I haven't printed that yet.
That's the one you're supposed to calibrate with.
Oh, the printer. Yeah, no, the printer came calibrated to me. I just had to.
So you've learned all about slicing, have you?
I've learned about slicing, and I've learned about workflow, and I've learned about tramming the deck. I have trammed my deck 7 times today.
Oh, have you done CAD? Have you CADed stuff?
It has been a very long time since I did anything in AutoCAD. I want to say decades ago. That I did some drawings. When I was in high school, taking drafting, the method that we were taught was a white vinyl eraser and a stapler pencil and a couple of rulers and drawing on vellum and paper in some cases. So it's been a bit of a curve for me to pick it up. I've loaded Fusion 360 and I went, wow, that's going to take a long time. And then I loaded Tinkercad and went, oh, this is simple. This is almost drag and drop simple.
I spent a half hour today on Tinkercad making a thing for our bookcases that it's so cool to see it on the screen, and then it becomes eventually, if you do it right, it becomes real in your hand for that little thing that you would normally get on AliExpress, but they don't have it, and then it's like, it's here, I made it. It's so cool.
Yes, exactly right. And so I'm looking forward to that. Now the printer came with a Raspberry Pi, and I printed a case for that, so that was neat. And so I fit the Pi in the case, and it came with the Raspberry Pi video camera, so that I could watch my head getting gummed up, or more preferably my designs getting printed. And so that's cool. It's a fairly well appointed printer. I'm save for today's frustration where I was ready to drop kick it through the goalposts of life. It's been kind of fun to have around. So that's, kind of number one on my hit parade.
Hold on. You know where they have a 3D printer where it makes perfect sense? Where you can't ship anything? On the ISS.
100%,
oh yeah, totally.
100%. They totally need one. Yeah.
I think, they do. I think.
I wonder what brand they're using.
I don't know how they print, but gravity might be helpful.
Well, it might be.
Spinning.
it might be, but what do they do with all the bits of? So I say printer poop, and so for those who aren't aware,
I don't think they care.
There's
you see what they've done with water. You see what they do with water up there. They seem to throw it up like it's no big deal.
Okay.
I
And
don't,
but they also recycle water and everything else.
I guess so.
But what do they do with the little bits? So I say printer poop for those who aren't aware of the term. It's when your printer starts, a little bit of stuff melts out through the extruder nozzle, and it leaves this little corner, this little pile of stuff in the corner of your printer deck, which kind of reminds you of something your dog might leave behind. Printer poop. But there are other bits of small plastic that come around. So I worry, hearing about that on the ISS, that stuff could get in the works and gum something up. That's my fear, But yeah, it makes perfect sense to have one up there for sure. So that's that's all I've been working at for the last week.
That's enough to keep you busy.
It's enough to keep me busy for sure. And, thanks to many listeners who've come along and bought a Morse tutor kit from Dan and myself, or one of our pressure paddles, the VK3IL pressure paddles. We're working to keep our stuff in stock. We have just been through the Chinese Lunar New Year shutdown of AliExpress doesn't ship anything for 3 weeks.
The year of the what?
The
The
rat.
not shipment.
Isn't it the year of the rat?
Snake, I think.
Yeah, all I know is it's the year when my stuff didn't get shipped for 3.5
Now I gotta
weeks
go
because
check.
I ordered it 2 days before Lunar New Year, apparently.
It's the year of the delay.
Yep.
The year of the delay.
No, this happens every year. We order stuff, from China, from occasionally accessories and stuff, and you don't order in January because you won't see it till March.
Well, in all fairness, they do give you a warning. So
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that doesn't
it
mean
is
that I paid
snake.
attention to it. It's the year of the snake. Well, even Farhan at HF Signals, with his latest radio, the Z-Bit X, that was supposed to be shipping February 12th, they had to send out an email to say, we are so sorry, but due to Lunar New Year, we are now shipping late February, I think the 25th or the 28th or something. By the time you folks hear that, if you put in a Z-Bit X order like Thomas and I did, and 239 of our friends, I'll tell you that story in a second. Your radio will ship soon. They did send out an email to those of us who ordered one, all 241 of us. We know this because there were 241 email addresses that were not on the BCC line.
Oh,
Oh, those are gold.
that's classic.
Yeah, well,
mistake.
it's a mistake, and namaste. Let's peace out and hope that the mistake doesn't get made again. So, anyway, that's what's going on in my place. George, what about you?
Well, it's been the week of the station controller. So I'm probably talking about it too much, but hey, here we are. That is what I'm working on. So we crossed a big threshold. So Patrick, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. So I made a new product called a station controller, and basically it lets you do what Mike was talking about with remote station operation. And a lot of the radios will remote out of the box like a flex radio, but you need a way to turn the power on and off and read the RF power and switch antennas and do all this other stuff that sits around the radio itself. And so I made a control system that does that. And we were in beta for 2 months, starting back in December. And so I got all the feedback from beta, and fortunately everything seemed pretty good with some minor enhancements all done. And so I decided we're done with beta and it's time to go to production. And I opened up the Sierra Radio Systems store to sell the station controller. And so I'm getting orders now. So orders are starting to roll in, and that's great. So I have to get them, boxed up and shipped and all this stuff that you got to do. So that's really exciting. And fortunately, I haven't run into any showstopper bugs. The documentation is not bad. I have a groups.io page where all the beta testers would exchange questions and comments and ideas and software and whatnot. And so that's now open. Anybody can join the groups.io page, and all the documentation's there. And that's all at sierraradio.net. So I'm excited about that. And since we're going to be at Hamvention and at CPAC, I'll be showing all that stuff off there. So That's really where most of my time's been. Yeah.
And just a shout out to all of our beta testers, whether it's yours or it's mine. Man, we cannot see that we're as the creators, we can't see the forest for the trees sometimes, and we can't anticipate all of the things that it's going to be used for. And so I love going to visit my beta testers. I visited one down in Florida, and I owe them. They are so good for us. And we made terrible mistakes at the very beginning because we didn't have beta testers, but we fix those problems now before anybody knows about it.
You know,
go ahead, Mike.
While you've seen me looking away, I've been reconfiguring my Geochron here because I have a brand new one. And I figured out my problem, by the way. It was auto loading my QRZ log. But the point is, so as George has seen this as well, right? You could pound away at this in your own shack or house for weeks, and you send it to a beta tester, and they break it within 25 seconds.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah,
what was this?
100%. And thank goodness for that, because in the beta, then you can go, oh man, I really should have done that, and you could tweak it. Now it's fixed. The thing I really appreciate both of you guys, your comments. One of the things that I also found super valuable is, like in this beta for this product, for example, I'll share just a couple quick things I learned. First thing was, I thought, well, since there was a Raspberry Pi as sort of the heart of the system, everybody's got a Raspberry Pi. So I would make a little board where you can take your Raspberry Pi and plug it in, and then I'll give you instructions on how to make the SD card with all the software you need. You'll plug it in and turn it on, and off you go. And I would say 80% of the guys in the beta are very technically savvy, and this is like fallen off a log for them. They've done this for other projects, no problem. And in fact, if anything, I was a little concerned that they're kind of more technically savvy than most of the other users I would probably have. Absolutely everybody, 100% of everybody in the beta just wanted to get the thing as a unit. Like, I don't want to make an SD card. I don't want to flash. I mean, yes, I know how to do that. I don't want to. Yes, I know how to load software. I don't want to. I know how to configure the thing. I don't want to read your documentation. Just give me the thing. And so, I was trying to be, overthink it, and like, yeah, of course. If I were in their shoes, it's me too. I would just like the thing. Thank you much. Because once I got the thing, later on, I'll figure out how to tweak it if I want to. But I don't want to start with tweaking. I want to start with it works. So that was, that was not I guess it was kind of a surprise, frankly. So I think one of the things that I love about the beta is that sometimes it reconfirms what you already know, and that's helpful. And sometimes, you, like in this case, I learned, I'm guessing almost everybody that's going to get this thing just wants it out of the box and to plug and play. They don't want to go through like an installation process if they don't have to. So that was really good. And frankly, kind of the way it ought to be. But this really confirmed it for me. So that was a good learning. Anyway, so that's swimming along. So I'm excited to start ramping that up. I also have a huge pile of Pactenas that started to show up today, and that's all in the store. So on a completely different topic, we now have a whole pile of Pactenas in stock with more to come. So that's going really well. So that's all cool. So that's on kind of the ham radio biz side, what's going on. I do have one other thing I want to share on the personal operating side of things. And in the spirit of, I need a demo radio for Hamvention, I thought it'd be nice when I demonstrate the station controller, it'd be nice to have a radio there. And originally we had only one booth. And so Mark and I were going to have to share the booth, and there's not a whole lot of room. And so I needed something really tiny. Now, of course, we just found out today we're getting two booths, so no problem with space. But anyway, so I need a small radio and something I can kind of bang around. So I thought, I don't know, what should I get? Maybe I'll use some, like a mobile radio would be good. And then I thought, I know what, like a G90 would be perfect for this, because they're kind of stout, they're small, they put out 20 watts, which is enough power to like do a good demo. That'd be good. And so I go on AliExpress. Patrick, speaking of AliExpress. So I go to AliExpress, and these radios are normally about $440, $450, if you kind of look on the average. And somehow or another, they were listed for $320. And I thought, well, this is probably a scam.
That's awesome.
But I'll give it a shot. So I placed my order, and it showed up. It's brand new, current model, out of the box, works great. I was playing with it yesterday during the power outage. I was listening to the nets on 20 meters and checking in here and there. And so first off, $320 is a steal for that radio. But even at $440, it's really not a bad radio. I mean, honestly, my ICOM, whatever, 7300, 705, better radio, better UI, bigger display. Yeah, better radio. 3 times the price, 4 times the price. So for $400, the G90 is really not that bad. And I know a lot of people love them for POTA. Vince?
We're going to need a link to that AliExpress in the show notes. It's
gone. It's gone now. I mean, I went back again today I was curious, and like that deal's gone. So I don't know. I have no idea what the story was. And you never know, like on AliExpress, because the store is like, Deal Tuesday store. Like, is that a business? I don't know. It's random words stuck together as a name of a store that probably aren't here tomorrow. So I don't know how these things come about.
And when did you order it? What was the relevance and the date to Lunar New Year?
It was shipped from the U.S. to boot. So, and I wasn't looking for that. It just turned out that way, that the dealer that I found happened to be in the U.S. But it was like some funky, random word name company. And I was actually, at one point, I wasn't going to go into all this, but the thing on AliExpress says, your package has been delivered. This is like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't. And if you want to find it, hit the track button. So you hit the track button, it takes you to FedEx, and there's a photograph of your package in front of somebody's garage, except for the fact that A, it was not my garage, and B, it was not my package. It was another picture of 7 other boxes that bared no resemblance to my box. So I'm like, wait a minute. The deal was too good to be true. They said it was delivered. The confirming picture ain't the thing or the location. So I may be out $320 here. So I started a dispute filing because it was like 2 days later, like, where's my package? And so then it was delivered. It was in process. They didn't do something. It would just happen to be a couple days late. And apparently the seller sent me the tracking number for some other transaction that wasn't mine. So I was able to track somebody else's boxes. I had no idea how to track mine. So anyway, long story short, it all worked out fine. There's no a weird business practice, I think, going on here. So I'm thrilled. I mean, the radio is great. It's built like a tank. The tuner works great, like everybody knows. So these radios are so darn popular. At $450, not bad. But below that, I think it's really a deal. And at 20 watts is a sweet spot. It's really good.
So you're going to bring this to Hamvention to do some demo?
Yeah, that's the plan. Because
all right. So you need to know that the corner that we are in has a door leading to the outside.
Yes.
But I'm sure you could run a piece of feed line out and string up a pack antenna.
I was thinking about that very thing because I was looking on the map as soon as Mark told me we got both booths. Yep. I looked on that and I noticed exactly that. So I think a wire is going to make it outside the building somehow.
Yeah, a wire will make it outside the building. Unfortunately, good fortune for us that we got 2 booths, but unfortunately, the unseen Bean, who's normally in the coffee, normally running coffee in that corner of the building, Jerry and his business partners, and especially Jerry's dog, are all such wonderful people, but he won't be there this year.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Does that mean we have to be selling coffee along with our pack antennas and our other stuff?
Oh, I don't know. We might be more popular if we sell beer, but that's just me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, I got Patrick's
I'll come by for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll save you a spot. Okay, so that's what's on the bench. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to dive into Geochron, and Patrick is going to tell us all about it. So we'll be right back. And for those of you who are watching this on video, this is what the intermission looks like between the segments.
Got to be careful.
Yeah, got to be careful.
All right.
We can't say any of the 7 nasty words or anything like that. No.
The 7 Q signs you can't use on anyone.
The 7 Q.
So we'll just go ahead and roll back in here and continue. Patrick, unless you want to take a break.
I'm good.
Is that QBM, QLF,
Q-
QPP?
QSA. Do you remember QSA? Mark came up with,
No.
it was Swamp. Don't you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Swamp butt. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
All right, gents.
So we're coming back in 5, 4.
Patrick, I'm going to dive into Geochron. I got to tell you, my recollection of Geochron goes back many, many decades. I want to say like 40 years ago, when I remember seeing the mechanical Geochron. You have to describe it for people, but I remember seeing the mechanical Geochron way back, maybe 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So you were probably like 1 year old at that time. So,
Thank you.
First of all,
a little older than that, but I'll take the compliment.
I want you to describe what a Geochron is, and maybe start with a little bit of the history and the background of the Geochron stuff, and how did you come to run this company?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm just going to throw a picture up on the screen. And what I'm looking at right now is the inventor of Geochron, who is James Kilberg. And he's the oldest guy in that picture. And he invented it in 1964 after he had invented the rotary auto dialer, like for a rotary phone, but an auto dialer. So it was a mechanism that turned the dial like that. So then it was shortly thereafter that he brought his sons in, and that's pictured the picture. The young guy there ran the machine shop that made the clock for 30 years. And then Ronald Reagan's in that picture. And so Ronald Reagan had one as governor of California. He took it to the White House. And then when Gorbachev came over to the United States after the fall of the Iron Curtain, he gave a Geochron mechanical clock to him as an example of American ingenuity, which is pretty cool. So that's sort of, I don't know where that Geochron is at. I really wish, probably buried in the Kremlin somewhere. But so the Geochron at the time was the only way to be able to visually see as a geographic chronometer where the sun was rising and setting without using a logbook. And so it kind of became known as like the king of the shack, right? Because if you wanted the coolest, most photogenic thing, then a mechanical Geochron is what you needed. So that's the back end of that.
So I that's fascinating. I think the thing that really got hams tingly about this, well, maybe many reasons, but one is if you're operating contesting or DXing, the propagation changes depending on where that the sunrise and sunset terminator is. So,
Yes.
so I don't know who could describe it, but why is that so important? Why is it important to know where that edge is for propagation purposes?
Yeah. So, like if on the digital Geochron, there's a maximum usable frequency, and you can see that the ionosphere is this gigantic soup of radioactivity and reflectivity of signals. And so as we bounce along up and down on Earth, ionosphere like this, it bounces signals. It's much more reactive, and it has a much higher reactance where the gray line is, and that's where the twilight is occurring in the atmosphere. So like right now, as I jump over to my live Geochron, as you're seeing here, you can see that Europe is pretty much out, and that it's super hot on 12 meters and 20 meters heading into Japan. And that roughly follows the gray line because the sun is rising in Hawaii.
So if you're a DXer, that's like super handy to know that.
Yeah. It's like opening a phone book and seeing what everybody's doing around the world, and not just in your neighborhood or on your band, but on all bands across the entire world. Yeah.
So what happened to the company? I mean, I didn't know there was an electronic Geochron until like a few years ago. So
right.
I thought the Geochron was like, yeah, they made it 40 years ago. That was awesome. And like, well, that's a piece of history. So what happened after that?
Well, it got really expensive. So it was very hot until the internet came around, and then you could load a browser window and you could see where the gray line was at. So it was pretty much reserved for people who had a lot of money. And even today, the mechanical Geochrons are $2,000 to $4,000. We still make them. We still restore them. Most of our work is restoration. And when I came to know the company, so I saw one, right? And if you're the right guy, I saw one in a conference room here in Portland, Oregon. In my middle career, I was working in project management, in commercial retail, in commercial construction. And I went, what is that? What? I could still see it burned into my mind right now. And I thought, it's a geochron. I touched it and I looked at it and it was a machine. It wasn't a digital thing. So I went on and started a new career as sort of a small business owner with another business. Things were going good. I'm like, I'm going to reward myself with a geochron. This is going to be great. And then I went to the website and I was just like, $2,000 to $4,000. What? So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to spend that much money to put something on the wall, because I didn't have that kind of money. But I went on eBay and I bought a mechanical geochron that they said was working. It was at an estate sale in Florida. They shipped it to me. I got it. I put it on the wall. It worked kind of, and then it broke. And so I opened it up, and it was clearly rocket science. I didn't have a 3D printer at the time, but there were parts that I could not replace, and it was gunked up pretty bad. So, and this is because it's a machine. You just use it. So anyways, I went to the website and discovered that the one place on earth that would fix that geochron was a mile from my house in Oregon City. So I threw the geochron in the back of my car and I drove down there, and they unlocked the door for me. It was Red Soils Business Park. And because they don't normally get customers that show up, right? They get just UPS will show up and bring the clocks to them to restore. And they took the clock, and then they said, okay, put it down right over there. It was like a 3,000 square foot machine shop. And then this lady read the serial number on the back, and then she disappeared into a little room where there were like index cards, like Dewey Decimal index cards. And there was like 1964, 1965, 1966.
Oh, wow.
And then she opened up 1987, dug all the way through. She pulled out a card, and then she brought the card. She walked across the room. She goes, okay. So this clock was sold to somebody over in New England, a little IT repair shop, in 1987. And then it came back in 1992 for a map. And then we lost track of it. But here it is. And I was like, oh, oh, I'm sold. I'm sold. Like, I'm sitting in a room, my shack right now. You're sitting in your shack. Everything that's in that shack, there's a million copies of that somewhere, right? Everybody's bought the thing and nobody knows where it went. But like, my clock had found its home. And so they fixed it. I took it home. We had a party, and we drank wine. We looked at the geochron. Of course, it's a big conversation piece. And then I just felt like there was something missing, like there was something yet to be done with that. So I drove back a month later and opened the door, tracked down the owner, and I said, can I talk to you in your office for a second? And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, hey, I really get the geochron. It's super cool. And she's like, yeah, right. They get that all the time. And I can see that the company as a whole is not really profitable. And then she sort of stiffened up at that, but that was true. I could see it. And because it's a thing that has been passing out into a mechanical obscurity because of the internet. And I said, if you ever wanted to talk about selling the company, I would like to be part of that conversation. And she was like, what? And I didn't know this, but right then, that week, they had decided to sell the company, and I went.
Wow.
Oh, what timing.
There was a bit of a convergence. So my wife would go on to say, Patrick, I wish I would have been a better helpmate to you to tell you that this was a terrible idea.
So Patrick, this is a great story. So I got to ask you, when you were having that conversation, when your going in position was, this company is failing because the time is passing it by.
Yeah.
But
I would like to buy it. So like, did you have a notion of like, and do what with it at that time, or
no?
Wait a minute. George just said, and time is passing it by.
Yeah. I'll let that slide.
Yeah. Okay. Let that slide. Thank you.
I walked into the company and so I had a company that was doing really well. I felt pretty confident in my skills as a small business owner, and the company represented something that I loved, and my personality type really likes, holding on to being the things that are traditional and morals and values, and like, don't destroy it if you don't have to. But it represented potential to me. my own potential about what I could be and what I could do as a small business owner. Here, there were employees. Here was a machine shop. Here was something that I loved, but I didn't know anything about. And so that's what was exciting to me. So we sort of talked about numbers, like what was it worth, and it was worth the price of the parts because the company was not profitable. And actually, I had intuited that correctly. The company wasn't profitable. It wasn't hemorrhaging money, but it was just flatlining. So we talked about what it was, just the price of the parts, and so they're like, it's about this much money, and I'm like, so I went around to the banks. I didn't have that kind of money, and the banks are just like, well, it's just an idea. Do you have like a CNC machine or something that we can sell if your loan goes belly up? And I'm like, no, it's just parts. And they're like, yeah, no, never mind. So I came back to them and I'm like, hey, nobody's going to lend me money around here, but so you'll have to carry the loan if you want me to do this. And then they were mad. They were upset because they really wanted a quick out, but this was not a quick out if they were going to carry the note. So they're like, what's your collateral? And so I offered my house as collateral. And because the value of my house was worth more, the equity I had in my house was worth more than what they were asking for the company. And so if the house was to be sold, then they would get if I had failed on the loan, then they would get the proceeds from that first by putting a lien on the house. And that's how we did it.
Well, that's motivating.
Yeah, I was motivated, but I believed. So, and I don't know, it was a convergence. It was just like I was the right person at the right time. I really felt like I was the person who's supposed to do this. And no, I had no idea what the digital was. It didn't even occur to me. I just thought, no, we just got this mechanical is great.
Wow, that's quite a leap of faith, because I mean, I could see if you went in there with like, man, we need to bring this into the 20th century with some fancy schmancy electronics, then maybe we'll leverage the brand equity. But when it's like, we got a bag of parts and an unprofitable business, but I can make something of this, that's gutsy to say the least.
Yeah, the marketing wasn't very good at the time from the previous owners. They were tired. And I loved the thing, and I thought, what could go wrong? So we have a clock, but man, I did not know what I was getting into. So the first couple of years were really, really hard, and we ran out of money, like you do when you have a product that is. How many things have disappeared into this mists of time? How many mechanical acronyms have disappeared? And I just was determined to not do that with the Geochron mechanical. I am not the person. It's not going down on my ship. And so I bled, and I went years without getting paid for all the work that was going on. But we made it. And fortunately, the Geochron Digital came around, and that also appeared. And so I brought that to life.
So how did that happen? I mean, what was the turning point where you came up with that idea? Were you sitting at a Starbucks going like, man, I just wrote a check for the last penny. I need something. I mean, what did you do?
Everybody else came up with that idea before me. They're telling me, is this digital? No. Everybody that was younger than me was like, oh, everything was older than me was like, is this, they look at the mechanical clock and they're like, is this digital? Because it's super glittery and beautiful and backlit. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, well, and then everybody younger than me was, is it digital? And I'm like, no, it's not digital. Don't you feel the mechanical charisma of this? Well, that all changed when we ran out of money. When I had this many bills and I had this much in the checking account. And so I took the advice of like, make it digital. And at just about that time, I was sitting down watching YouTube, as I do at night. And there was a YouTube video that came up, and there was a guy that had made a Geochron digital clock for his grandmother who could not afford a mechanical clock. It was a lot cheaper. And he did it by using a digital picture frame, like a little, 8x6. So, and it was gross. It was really dirty. And it wasn't the resolution that you would hope for. It was just sort of like, I could make out the world in a gray line, but I thought, that guy knows how to do that. And so I did some digging and I found him, and it was a professor in upstate New York. And so I called him on the Geochron phone, and I got his faculty voicemail, and I'm like, hey, this is Patrick, the owner of Geochron. You're not in trouble. I just want to talk to you about how you did that. And so eventually we worked together for 6 months and put together the bare bones of the clock. And then he was looking at it on his desktop monitor, and he was saying, and this was 8 years ago, I think, and he was saying it doesn't look that great, it just looks okay. And I'm like, well, do you have a 4K TV? And he's like, we do in the lab. So he had a big Apple TV in the lab that was 4K. This is before 4Ks were entirely ubiquitous. And he plugged it in. He was like, oh, that looks really good. And I'm like, yes, see, that's what we're trying to do. So eventually there was a young man who had applied to be a machinist, and a wheel-trained sort of machinist at the mechanical shop, but he had a long list of programming languages on his resume. And I called him up and I'm like, hey, I don't think you're the right fit to be a machinist, but what's with all these programming languages? And he goes, well, I did this and I did that, and I'm totally self-taught, but I'm really good at this. And I'm like, you know what? I got a spot for you. And so he's still with me, and he wrote a lot more of the program. And then I have another guy that's still with me. And this other guy I visited when he was a baby in the hospital, because he's a dear family friend. And so he's with me. He's lived in my house, and then he found an apartment, and he's a genius programmer. So between the three of us here in 2025, we made something beautiful.
That's amazing.
That's a very wonderful, heartwarming story. Thank you.
Yes. It was
Absolutely.
Not millions in venture capital, and then I hired anything that could code to make this thing work.
Right.
No, this is just somehow
This pure passion.
The flower appeared, and I started tending the garden.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that don't know, hard to imagine, but if you don't know what a geochron is, we talked about it a little bit, but what is the current digital form of the geochron like?
Sure. Yeah.
I know this is mostly audio, and there'll be a lot of hand waving here, but describe it. And for those of you watching the video, you can see an image of this.
So what I'm showing on my screen right now is just a live view from my shack of what the geochron looks like right now this evening as we're doing this interview. And so to describe it is, in the beginning, it was just a copy of the mechanical clock. So the same Mercator format, and it's a certain longitudinal lines up and down. So we're in the Mercator format. But if you've ever seen the movie Buzz Lightyear, you know that the mechanical would be Woody, and the digital is definitely Buzz Lightyear. Because over time, we've added 85 live layers to it. So the maps change, the geopolitical, topographical, ham radio, and then multiple live layers, whether it's ham radio or it's weather or it's aviation or sciences like earthquakes. And when we're moving more towards news. So what I'm trying to do is to create a world that instead of just doom scrolling on your phone all day long in your own little echo chamber, why don't you take in information about the world on a map? And in a 4K screen, you can have the resolution that will allow you to see multiple lines of information and awareness at the same time. And so ham radio is part of that, because you guys, we're so connected with the whole world because we're not limited by our physical presence. We're limited by the reach of something that can accelerate much faster and go much further, which is our radio frequency. And so, of course, ham radio people love this because they're in touch with the context of the entire globe, not just their own community or their own little business or where they're sitting at that moment. So it's a great fit. The other people that like geochron would be like aviators, people who do a lot of shipping, people who have been around the world and like to travel a lot, and people who are really smart and educated. It's not uncommon for me to go on my little trips when I visit people, and like, gosh, you know what? On one trip, 3 of the 4 people I visited had PhDs. One of them was Harvard trained, and one was MIT trained. This is normal. People who like geochron are really smart. That's why it goes so well in the ham radio community.
So let's talk about the ham radio features. Well, first of all, you mentioned there's like 80 layers of data. So I assume what this means is that you have a way to, well, actually, before we get to that, let me take a big step back. Okay, the old geochron was a big box. You hang it on your wall, you plug it in, and the Terminator thing moves across the map, and you can see all that. So the new one, the digital one, I assume you have to go buy a TV set somewhere or have a TV to use, and then you provide an electronic gadget that what, just hooks up between the internet and your TV? It's like a little tiny box kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, Mike is
right waving there. One around here that looks pretty.
This is my older one. This is the Atlas, which I didn't know there was a newer one, but thanks to Patrick answering emails himself at 11 o'clock at night.
I did that. Oh, my wife doesn't like that.
Yeah. Then I picked one up at a newer one, but yeah, by the way, I wanted to say, if you were watching the video, the resolution through the Zoom here is nothing like reality. So don't, anyway, carry on, Patrick.
So so you plug the box in. I assume it's HDMI on one side and Wi-Fi or something on the other.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll pull up a little picture here. So what it looks like is what I'm seeing here. It's like a little candy bar, but it's like a stick computer. But what this is a commercial public display computer. So if you went to, let's say, a trade show or something, and they had those boards, there's a computer back there somewhere, and this is a really nice one of those that's capable of rendering in 4K. And so it outputs in HDMI, and then the Ethernet and the Wi-Fi that you see there receives live data from us. So the problem we were trying to run into, the design problem, was how could we make, if you wanted to stream something that was configurable in 4K, like watching in Netflix, that would be 20 gigabytes an hour. And so your ISP would be like, you've exceeded your quota for the last 2 weeks. You need to turn this thing off. It's too much internet. And so what we did instead was, by rendering on the user side with a small public display computer, we're not running at 20 gigabytes an hour. We're rendering at 20 megabytes an hour. And then also you have something that works off grid if you don't need all that live data. Michael, when I was at that show, the Hamcation, the internet's terrible at those shows. And so I was just working the Geochron off the hotspot on my phone in my back pocket the whole time.
Wow.
And that's because it just sips information. It's not like streaming a movie. This is not a streaming device.
So let's say it's of your ham. So for our audience, what can you do? I assume that there's a way to turn off. Let's say I don't want the aircraft layer or the shipping layer. I just want to look at the ham radio layer. Sure. Mike's waving a remote at me. So I guess through the remote, you can select what information you want to see.
Yes.
So what would that, like, what's on the menu for hams? What could I put on the screen?
Wow.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I can tell you right now. So first of all, half of our customers are ham. And so we have a really great ham radio workstation for visual stuff that's on the Geochron. But we also have other stuff. So that would be weather and aviation and that kind of thing. For ham in particular, I'm just going to jump over here to a slide and describe what I'm seeing. But we start with a ham radio map that should look familiar with, has all the 24 time zones. That's in a Mercator projection. And then we move over to the geocentric projection. FT8, Whisper, DX. These are all settings and the bands that you want to see in those settings. So you can see what everybody else is doing on the rest of the world. And you can put up call signs within the Maidenhead grids. Not all of them, but enough to see that there's people out there. And you'd be like, oh yeah, I know that guy. But and then watch it. It's just similar to PSK Reporter. You can decode the great circle routes of those transmissions by looking at the color bands in the legend below. So it's red, pink, blue, that kind of thing. And then putting it all together, you're seeing just AMSAT satellites swinging around. You're seeing aviation, the International Space Station, the live Earth view of the International Space Station, all that stuff, QRC logbooks. You've got your call sign, of course. Sublunar point, the ham radio, sublunar point, and the moon terminator, just like the sun terminator. And then just widgets of like solar weather, aurora, the maximum usable frequency in like a topographical format, along with the locations of actual ionospheric radars. And so to answer your question, it gets too busy. There's just too much on the screen to see what's going on because we've got 85 live layers at the moment. So, and we're adding some all the time. So you can turn those layers on and off as you wish. And then there's an opacity adjustment that's inside them as well. So you can bring them out, bring them back. And you can also store different configurations that you want to see. Oh, I want to see
like that.
now.
That's new.
10 minutes later, I just want it to rotate. I want to go between a ham radio and I want to go between weather and stuff like that. So one of the challenges that we have is that there's just so many layers that I'm going to show you here, right? Sorry. There it is. So there's just so many layers that I can't show them all at one time. And frankly, the computer can't show them all at the same time, just like your computer can't run every program it has simultaneously. What I have on the screen right now is everything that's included in the ham radio workstation. And that would be DX, FT8, Whisper, custom call signs, maximum user frequency, solar terrestrial widgets so you can see what's open, center projection, AMSAT satellites and FM or linear, the lunar subpoint, the moon terminator, and then like contesting maps like the Maidenhead grid and the CQ I2 zone maps. And then also that can zoom into major metropolitan areas, major continents, North America, Europe, Australia, Alaska, Canada. And we're adding more of those zoom zones all the time. So
you can add all your friends. I don't think you did the custom pin drops.
Oh yeah, right. So you can add pins. That actually came from the mechanical clock. So they would make the mechanical clock, and it's a backlit map. Let me change my screen here. It's a backlit map in the mechanical clock, but you can't touch it once the clock has been built. And so people would order it from like Pittsburgh, and then they would tell the factory, "Can you take like a little pin and then put a hole where Pittsburgh is at so it shines like a little light through the map because it's backlit." And so for that reason, they're like, where do you want your pin to go? And they would just puncture the map right in the mechanical map. And then and so that was where the idea came from, is like we should have pin locations on the digital Geochron, which we do. You can have, I think, up to 50 pin locations that show time and all that stuff for that location.
Hey, there's one called Geochron. Is that where you're sitting right now?
Yeah, I put that one on. That's default on everything, but you could turn it off if you don't like that.
I just turned the time off.
So there's a couple of use cases that pop to my mind, like what I would want to do right out of the box. And so I'm curious if you could do this. So the first thing I'd want to do is know if I'm on the air, like with PSK Reporter, I could see where my signal is going.
Yes.
Can you display that information on there?
You can't see where your signal is going. This is so what we're doing is we're getting into the same log that the same database that PSK Reporter uses within the FT8, and we're scooping about 10% of all the contacts, or 5 to 10% of all the contacts that are out there, and then pushing it out into all the atlases that are out there, so that we can see what's happening around the world. Right now, we're making some server configurations that make it more efficient for us to sort through all that information faster. And I'm hoping in the next time we do a go around with the ham radio workstation that you can come up with your own stuff, and you can see your stuff and everybody else's stuff at the same time. Right now, you're just seeing like a global picture of what's going on.
Okay. So today, if I were to, let me see if I get it right. Let's say I want to know what's propagation like from my location on 20 meters. So I could probably filter out to a bunch of traffic that's being reported on 20 meters. And so that other people's traffic is kind of a proxy for what the propagation would be for me.
Correct. Yeah, you're right by saying that. In your case, and I'm doing this on the screen right now, I would jump into the Western United States so you can see a better picture about your region. And then you can decode what's on the screen by seeing that there's a ton of people who are, and I'm looking at my screen right now. So it's 12 meters and it's 15 meters and it's a little bit of 6 meters that's happening right over your head right now. And it's all heading east across. And that's where almost everything is going right now. So in the future, I hope to be able to locate just to your call sign and let you show your stuff in real time as you log it.
George, you could also, I've learned how to read the maximum usable frequency map.
Yeah. How do you use it, Mike?
I first off, I just got a new one, so wasn't aware of the different profiles and the rotation of that. So you've just sold me on buying the weather package because of that. Because ham radio I don't want another second Geochron, so you've solved that problem.
Okay, all right.
But generally, we all want to know when 6 meters is open. Is I filter my DX spot so I only see 6 meters, and 160. Right now, there's a 160 meter contest going on. So I'm looking at mine over here, and I see a whole bunch of going back and forth on 160 meters between Eastern North America and Europe. So that's to be expected. But at noon, I know 10's open and I know everything, what I know, but 6, of course, being the magical band, sometimes it doesn't open.
Mm-hmm.
But I sit here and I'm working away and I look up and, 6 is open to Europe. Well, work stops and I power up the maestro and I'm on the air, right? And I haven't leveraged, Whisper. We don't give Whisper its due. We're going to distract for a minute, but one of the more powerful tools for knowing the band is open. And from a ham radio perspective, I think I've told the story before. And for Patrick, I used to have a screen on 10-meter Whisper when at the bottom of the sunspot cycle. So I would have 10-meter Whisper open, and it'd be, some little bit of Whisper path going on. And one day I looked at it and there was a path about 2:30 in the afternoon from here to Australia. And these are, 1 watt Whisper, half watt Whisper stations. A couple of them were popping up. So I took the rig, aimed it to the middle of Australia, cranked the amp on, and called CQ on 28,400 or 500, just picked a frequency. I worked 2 guys with ICOM 735s and a dipole, and they were there for 10 minutes and gone. But with a Whisper, the Whisper tells you there's propagation. So this is how I use it, is to advance. Look, as when we get in 5 or 6 years ago now, we're going, what happened to 10 meters? Then I'll turn on that band and say, hey, did it open? Because there's nothing better when 10 meters is open. So it's just, such a piece of eye candy, but very useful eye candy.
So I would take it a step further beyond the eye candy stage. The eye candy is kind of like, wow, that's really cool. But when it becomes like a compelling decision to get one, to me, besides that, I mean, that's good enough. But beyond that, there's a couple things I'd like to be able to do. One is I'd like to be able to do what you're describing, Mike. I don't know if I do it the same way or if there's a better way to do it, but to be able to glance up at it and go like, well, what's going on? And if I know, like, I want to operate, I'm just repeating what you said. I want to get on 6 meters and see if there's any propagation. I want to be able to look at the screen and go, yep, there it is. Even if I could figure that out, like go to a website and figure it out, like DX Heat or something like that, it's pretty useful for that sort of thing. But I'd love to be able to have that as a permanent thing up on the wall where I could just keep an eye out for that or have it alert me when it starts to see an opening.
There one day 6 was open to your side of the world. I should have phoned you, but I wouldn't have known had it not been on my Geochron. Right.
Yeah, so if you could do that, that's a good selling point. The other thing that would be that I would love to see is I want to see my signal. So the PSK reporter, I'll come back to that. That's really compelling because a lot of times, I mean, I'm a casual operator, so I'm not like a big time contest or any of that. And so when I do operate, half the time I just want to know, like, where am I getting to? I mean, half the time I could care less about the conversation. I just want to know, like, is the band open or not? And with, like, I operate little QRP radios on a very mediocre antenna, and I want to know, like, am I getting out at all? And going to PSK Reporter, I can see, hey, 10 stations heard me. So I would love to have that as a perpetual, click, there's the now button. And the other thing that would be a really good reason to do that is if you have a club station, or do a field day, and you want to do a really nice public presentation, having a visual that shows where your station is talking is an instantaneous selling point right there. When we did field day last year at a public location, we had our logging software, and the N3 FJP logger is very nice. It has a map view, and every section that you work would fill in that with color. And so we had like non-hams coming by and the Forest Service guys coming by, like, oh, what is this? And you could talk gibberish till you're blue in the face, but if you point to the TV set and it's like, we've talked to people in all these colored squares, they're like, oh, I get it. So that visual impact is very, very important. And can you imagine taking that one step further? It's like, okay, here's your pin where your station is, and here's all the arcs to the stations I've been working and where they're located. I think that would be fantastic in a public setting. Very, very good.
Yeah, the Geochron is perfect for all that.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting there. So what I hear a lot is that as people walk into the shack and if they're not hams, they don't understand what all that data is. They don't know all our gear is. but they look at that map on the wall and they know what that is. And then they use that to describe, this is what I do in the middle of the night. And
exactly. When you see that little arc that's like from where you're standing to the end point in, Hawaii or whatever, it's like, oh, I get it. Everything else is just detail. That's that's very cool. I think the other sort of killer app, and I'm curious if you've used this, Mike, is the satellite view, because I'm lazy and I don't really want to go download a data file and bring up an application and import the file and run a report and then maybe find out if a satellite's going overhead. I want to just look up at the wall and go, oh, look, here comes one now.
It's there.
Is that there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and you get the footprint of the satellite in addition to the position.
The world's speeding a little quicker here than normal, though.
But here's the real one. So what I'm showing on the screen right now is the Geochron in real time. And you can see that I'm showing 3 footprints. The purple ones are AMSAT, and I don't know the names that are right off the top of my head of which ones I selected.
RS-44 is a very popular one, which is what I have.
And then the yellow one that's coming over coming over into Africa right now, that one is just a circle. That's the footprint of the International Space Station. So yeah, your favorite satellites are pretty easy to track and to see.
So is there like a tick list where you can like turn different satellites on and off to see what gets displayed?
Yep. It is just like that. You show footprint, you can select each one. So all satellites are trackable on the Geochron, even all the SpaceX satellites, almost all the SpaceX satellites. There are so many, though, of SpaceX satellites that we had to put a limit on it because it just obliterates the screen. It's like a snowstorm when you put them up. But with the AMSAT satellites, those are categorized inside the ham radio workstation part of the menu. And then you can pick and choose what you like to see, and then also see the future of those satellites, where it's going over the next hour. Yeah.
So you mentioned the ham radio package. So is that something you buy on top of the basic Geochron, or is that it just comes with it?
Sure. So some of it is free, and then some of it I have to pay to get. So the way that it's organized is like a freemium model, to be honest with you. So you get the platform. You have the Atlas 2 or the Atlas. Let's just stick with the Atlas 2. And then there's going to be about 20 layers that you get. Some, satellite weather, ham radio map, the gray line, and like aviation stuff that I don't have to pay for, frankly. And I just pump that out to all Geochrons everywhere for free. And then in the premium tab, you can check out all the rest of it by a trial. And then some of that most of that costs me money to get, and certainly costs me money to send to you. So over server time. So that, like the weather bundle is $4 and $4 a month. And then the earthquakes are $2 a month. It's super reasonable. These ham radio bundle is $6 a month. But if you wanted everything all together, you wanted all the data all the time, all 85 layers totally. Right now we call that a global pass. And that means that is $11 a month. So
that's pretty reasonable for everything.
Thanks. We're trying to keep it reasonable. So one of the things that's important to know is that I'm not saying that we are generating this data on our own. We're really just data aggregators. You could open up 40 browsers on your, you could find this stuff online. You could open up 40 browsers and see all the stuff that is on the Geochron, but nobody in the consumer space is putting it all together into a 4K map like we are. So we've got a lot of a loyal ham radio audience, but we're also working towards aviation. We're working towards news. We're working towards earth sciences and naval stuff because the map is a map is universal. It's not just for ham radio. And we can use this as a platform to reach all sorts of different people that want to see different stuff. But that data all costs money. It just doesn't come for free. I have to buy it with a commercial license. So that's why it costs a little bit of money.
So I have kind of a nerdly question for you. If I had some data set that I wanted to put on the Geochron, is there a way for me to dump data into it, or is it's curated specific data sets that you guys organize?
So for the regular user, it's curated a data set for the regular user. But there is a way, there's a backdoor, and you'll have to ask support about it because we haven't updated it for some time. But there is a way through your account to be able to load up things like transparent PNGs. So like I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a graphic file that has a transparent background. And so that's like our weather layers are mostly transparent PNGs that we're getting. And you can upload your own transparent PNGs, but you have to contact support to get it doesn't cost any money. It just is a little bit of explanation on how to do that.
Yeah, I thought maybe there might be some commercial application where someone wanted to customize the thing and they could pump some data into it somehow. And
so we have had a couple things where that happened. There are some companies that like own multiple ships, fishing vessels, and they want to see where they are, and they contact us. They're just like, can we get that on our Geochron? And that's not something that anybody else wants to know. They just want to know. And then we're just like, if you put a little JSON file and update it every day on your server and tell me where it is, we'll reach in and we'll grab it and then we'll get it to your Geochron. That's a special
pretty cool
commercial service. Mostly people want to put their business logo above my logo or something like that. So that's pretty much the most customization that happens on
that you could sell.
Yeah, that's easy to do. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned aeronautical pilot ones. I have a number of friends that have built these maps. You probably know where I'm going with this, where they physically built the map and then they've put LEDs for all their favorite airports, or maybe half of the US. You know where I'm going with this. Part of the kit is, if you build this, my buddy built one, and then you wire all these LEDs into an Arduino. And they go red, green, and I forgot what other color, tricolor LEDs, is it VFR, is it IFR? And, that tied with the weather. And by the way, I just bought the entire friggin' bundle. And thank you for crediting my ham radio bundle that's left, so thanks for, I thought, I'm going to get this. I'm going to have to email. So I just bought the ham radio bundle. Anyway, it was all done correctly. So thank you for that. Yeah. And, so anyway, just another idea, but that, George, your idea is great too, right? That's
So Mike, what's the best size TV to plug this into?
Whatever's on sale at Costco.
179 inches, man.
There you go.
I don't know. So my shack's like, it's my shack. It's my man cave, and it's pretty big. So a while ago, I bought and I spent a lot of time in here for work. Bought a TV and mounted it between the two benches, and it's on an arm. And of course, it runs Geochron most of the time, unless I'm watching the news or a hockey game while I'm working or something. It's a TV as well. But I don't know. I think that's 48 or 50. I could go measure it really fast. I don't think I spent more than $300 or $400 for it Canadian at Best Buy, and it's not. I don't think you need to be that critical, because the colors are generally pretty vibrant anyway, or they're not. If you're looking at the Max MUF map, where it's sort of more generalistic, but yeah,
it's not like you're pushing the refresh rate or any other.
Not at all.
I mean, so you can probably go for the cheapest 4K monitor that is the size you want. It would probably be just fine, right?
100%. But it's probably time that you upgraded the family TV anyway to a newer 4K, and that's how you sell it.
There you go.
Put this in the shack.
We use Roku's and TCLs, whatever the cheapest thing is on Amazon.
This is a TCL.
There you go.
And the hardest part about that was trying to get it past the Roku menu.
So what's a TCL for those of us who don't know?
It's a cheap 4K TV.
Oh, okay. Is it like Roku locked to start with?
Roku's loaded
I think I saw one we bought for Dayton or for Camcation. We needed new monitors in the booth. We went, to Walmart and bought 2 new 4K monitors for the Nooks we use, and they're, what size do we get? 43 inches, and they were 173 US.
Oh, that's insanely cheap.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
didn't take them back when we were done.
You didn't.
Yeah. So back in the day when we first came up with an Atlas, and then there were distributors that wanted to carry it. I said, if you have a physical location, I will buy a 4K TV. You make an order from me, I will buy you a 4K TV so you can show it. And so all the ham radio outlets all across the country, they've all got a 4K TV, and I bought them from Amazon and just had them shipped directly to them. And it was and so everybody uses it. But that was missing. Geochron had tried to do this before, but they were working in HD. And so it was an old piece of software called World Watch, and it didn't look that great. But what we were missing was the ubiquity of 4K, and that's what makes this possible and makes it look really, really good.
Yeah,
So
literally the first time I saw it, I went, "Wow!" It really is. If you've never seen one, it's you just got to have it just because it's so darn cool.
Yeah.
But that's especially if you have 4 monitors in your AMJack already. Where
are you gonna?
So if I had one of these at field day, how much you mentioned the amount of internet bandwidth required. Didn't sound like a whole lot. So could you get away with like a crummy cellular connection if that's the best you got?
I just did that for 3 days at Hamvention, and it worked pretty good.
I remember Patrick saying a bit earlier on his hotspot was in his back pocket, tethered.
Yep, I ran it off my phone. This phone. So.
So, okay. So at this point, what's on your? I don't know if you want to spill the beans. What's on your list of, like, if I could do anything I wanted, here's like the 5 things that would be really cool to add to it.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to make I want to do Parks on the Air. I want to show what's open on Parks of the Air. So like Mike, you mentioned like the aviation, the yellow and the red and the greens, and like when a park is open, I want it to light up on the Geochron.
You mean when there's an operator operating at a park?
Yeah, especially in like a North American Zoom. That would be super cool.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah. In the same corollary, I want to provide a lot of METAR data for our aviation so they could see what the status is. Mike, you talked about that, like the status of airports. I'm well aware of that. And the Geochron is perfect for that kind of a thing.
100%
live stuff.
Especially in Zoom.
Yeah. Now that we did Zoom, that unlocks a lot more resolution for us.
Yeah.
We can put a lot more stuff on the screen. And then the other thing that I want to do, and this is the direction that we had a choice. We have 35 live weather layers. And so we're halfway to getting a real fully featured aviation bundle together for all our aviators out there. Or we could go with news. Now, I'm not talking about political news, please no, but there are databases out there that will geolocate and provide context to property loss and human life loss and natural disasters, and they are going on all over the place, all over the world. We have a lot of emergency management centers that buy this thing, and they want to know exactly that kind of stuff. So it's like, some van, some bus went off into a ravine somewhere. Another Ebola outbreak. Missile launch. And so what we're going to do in 2025 is we're going to tie into that database, and then the Geochron will just have active icons everywhere that are being updated every couple of minutes about serious things that are happening to humans all across the globe. And that's what the Geochron would be really good at. That's what I want. That's what I want.
So you mentioned Zoom. Normally you get the full Mercator projection of the planet.
I'm the straight man.
Can use like the reason I'm asking is, like, you mentioned sort of this disaster aspect of it. I could see if you're like an EOC, you don't want to see the world because your whole geography is the size of a pin. You want to really zoom into your county or your state or something like that.
Yeah. So the Geochron is never going to be the thing where you can pinch all the way down to your house. That's probably not going to happen for us. It just takes a lot to be able to do that on a client-side computer. That's like a horsepower to do that in 4K. That would be consistent with a desktop computer, but then the Atlas would cost not $400 or $500. It would cost $2,000, like the computer that I'm sitting at now, which is a $5,000 computer, could do all that. So if I jump over here to my live Geochron, you can see that there is a menu, and then you have global maps, and then you have zoom zones that we've created. And in 4K, we really get down to the details. As I look at it, it's USA, USA West, USA East, Europe, Australia, East Canada, Alaska, the Caribbean, because I love to see those hurricanes come in the weather package. And then we're adding more all the time. So people are usually where our customers are at. This is where we're focusing. And so that's the zoom that we have going on. I have the West Coast open right now, you can see that storm that we'll be feeling in about Monday. So it's coming. It's coming. So does that answer your question about Zoom?
Yeah, so regional Zoom, but not down to like a county or something like that, but like the multiple states, that sort of thing is possible.
Yeah, that is possible in the future. Every time I add, just as from a business perspective, every time I add a Zoom zone, I have to make more calls to all the data that I'm purchasing. And so that means that let's say you're in Oregon, so I'm going to jump into Oregon. And then now I have to come up with a higher resolution data set just for that state, which means that I'm making more and more and more calls. And it goes it can escalate into tens of thousands of dollars a month to get that data. And we're not ad supported. We're customer subscriber supported, and I don't want to raise the cost for everybody else because Oregon wanted better resolution on their single Zoom zone. However, if I was king of the world and Geochron grew, then I could afford that. And so let's get that done.
There we go. That sounds like a worthy goal.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff I want to do.
That's very good. I'm sort of curious about the hardware. It sounded like the hardware, you didn't have to make it custom for your business. So is it like an OEM piece of hardware that is used for other purposes, or how did you come up with that?
This is it. Boy, it was difficult. So the story on the hardware is we started ordering these small x86 streaming computers from Amazon to see what would work. And most of them could not handle a horsepower of 4K. And then we found a distributor that was overseas that could provide it. And then we got it in and we're like, this is going to be great. And we thought it was going to work. And we fussed with it. And finally we pushed it out to our beta testers. And they're just like, it's great. But then every time I reboot it, it just forgets where it's at and pees in its pants. So there's something wrong here. And what had happened was we had ordered computers and they had not included an RTC in the computer, so which is a real-time clock. So I was trying to make a clock that didn't have a clock inside of it. So that was a very expensive mistake. And then of course, the support was terrible. So what happened was I was at a trade show and somebody said the word public display computer to me, and that was the keyword that I needed to run with. And then that opened up finally an American distributor that gets these made, that knows what they're doing, and supplies tens of thousands of these a year, not just to me but other people, other businesses. And so we chose a model that was appropriate for us, that wasn't too expensive, because I didn't want to make it $1,000 to get in. I want it to be $400 or $500 to get in. And so that became our Atlas, and it's been working great. We've been with this hardware manufacturer for the last 6 years.
That's really interesting, because to me, as someone who makes hardware, I always look at these things like, well, how much do you have to bake yourself? And designing it and having it manufactured, especially in relatively low volume markets, to get something you really want is kind of cost prohibitive.
Yes.
So it's great when you could find something you could, leverage leverage the other thousands of units that are being sold to somebody else, and then customize it for what you need. And then you have your own custom product at the end of the day. So anyway, that's very interesting to me how you came up with that.
Yeah. The trouble with the business is that there's three of us that do kind of the lifting on the design and the production. And so but no one else is doing this in the consumer space. So it's not like I just found a software package and then just plugged it in and put my data on it, and then there it is. That's like you're using somebody else's app that you bought, and then you just change the color tones for you. That is not Geochron. Everything around here is home cooked. So fortunately, like I like to say, we're all geniuses in our wheelhouse. And so this is why it works. But when it comes to the hardware in particular, like, nobody around here solders. So I am happy to trust
around there.
I know how to solder, but not this kind of soldering.
Yeah.
So we're grateful that we have a really good hardware vendor.
That's great. So how do you wind up distributing this? If I want to go buy one, do I go to your website, or do I just go to Amazon, or what are the outlets?
Sure. So a lot of the ham radio vendors, so distributors will carry it, and it'll be a shout out to DX Engineering and Gigaparts, Ham Radio Outlet, and Chat, CHATT Chat, and so you can get it from them. They are on Amazon, and I control that channel, or you can get it from geochron.com. If you get it from geochron.com, it comes with a free ham radio workstation for a year. This is something that our distributors won't do because I have to pay a cut to them when they, because they're doing marketing on their own. They want to be incentivized to sell the product. So, but if I sell it from my website, which is just fulfilled over here in a warehouse next to me, then I will give you some of that back with a free ham radio bundle for a year.
Darn, I wish I knew that last week.
Oh, yeah, I can't say that at a trade show.
No,
okay, fair enough.
As I'm standing in the Gigaparts booth. No.
So given half of us, more than half of us tonight are Canadian, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that they are also carried at Radio World and GPS Central in Canada.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
I just let me share this, and Vince, I don't know if you can bring it forward.
Yeah,
so
you
I've
bet.
been rapidly editing mine because I love weather, and this is a zoom in
snowstorm. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's going to drop a whack of snow, and I'm right here, so I haven't put myself in yet. And of course, you disappeared. Oh, you're over here, and I'm going to add all you guys in. But I bought the advanced weather pack, which gave me this beautiful weather display, and I think these are 160 meter things that are going on from the DX cluster, right, Patrick? Have I got that right so far?
I think that's right.
Yeah. And then, but the things I do love from an amateur radio operator, I do get this. Well, this is a pretty common. We've all seen this, but hey, it's right there. It's 179 is the solar flex. The A index is 27 and the K is 4. That's a little disturbed. And then I love the auroral cone pictures.
It's busy tonight.
It's busy. And if I look at North America, this auroral thing's getting a little low, right? So for Vince, he's probably going to see if he was to walk outside, because he's fairly north compared to me, because Vince is way up here, and I'm way down south. I don't know how many degrees you're.
51.
You're 51. I'm at 43.
Yeah.
So he's way over there. So George, imagine when this is.
Yeah,
what did you say?
I'm my fingers hovering over the button as we speak. So a couple of questions for you, Mike.
It is usually a competition to see which one of us pulls the trigger first. By the way, Patrick.
First or most.
First or most, yeah.
Mike, I'll mention that you can make that map bigger by going to the general tab and then choosing slim time band. And that will shrink the time band a little bit.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Yeah.
Because this is a photo, so it's not the actual thing. But
I see.
And you can see I haven't cleaned up because there's a big advice to not attach it to anything. So it is sort of hanging down a bit here.
Yeah.
But,
so Mike, I don't see the Terminator on this image. So I guess the Terminator is something you can turn on and off.
Yeah, well, it's that's correct. I think I've
or we're just it's all nighttime. So
it's all nighttime. It's all nighttime. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm showing on my screen. Yeah, go ahead.
And I wasn't sure if it was visible in Zoom, because when you zoom, some things are disabled, right? So
the image looks great. Now, can you put a marker on there, which is your location?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I go to QRZ and I just type in the lat and long from QRZ. And you build and scatter your friends all over the place and put my call sign on it.
Yep, that is lovely.
Yep.
Yeah. Haven't hit enter yet.
so Patrick,
it is a work purchase, right? For you, it's like not a personal purchase. Yeah.
I want the API so I can upload every time I sell a station controller or a Pactena. I want to put the location, like a pin on the map.
Oh yeah.
Seems like that would be a doable thing.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah, there are multiple pins. I think it's like 60 or 70 pins you can have total. And you go higher than that if you get behind in the API, and contact support about that.
I did want to say, I think the year package, Patrick, in US dollars was $110 or something like that.
$11 a month right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I come from a software background. I have no problem paying people who write software on the recurring subscription basis. The only way to make sure these guys keep getting paid every year. Right.
Yeah.
And if you've worked in that industry, you'll understand fully. So I have no issue paying $100 for this. I really enjoy it.
Yes. Right.
And so the normal retail price for the latest, what's the latest model called? You made a couple.
Atlas 2.
Atlas 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much is that? You said $400 or $500 for the computer?
Yeah, I think it's on our website for $479, and then if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get 10% off of that.
Oh, good deal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
I got it. I'm okay. I'm okay with the price.
Yeah,
because I got a show special, so it all worked out.
It all worked out. That's right. I try to balance it, but I don't. So of course, I don't want to undercut our dealers because they're reaching an audience that I can't reach, and so they're awesome, right?
And you don't want to piss off the customers that already bought one.
All that. And so the question that usually comes up is like, when are you going to move to an Atlas 3? And the answer is hopefully never, because I get so much grief when I enter a new, a new, better, faster model, because everybody gets mad. Like, well, I got the Atlas 2 and now I have to get an Atlas 3. So hopefully we can make the Atlas 2 work for as long as possible and continue to improve on it. Yeah.
So is there anything that we haven't covered yet that we should? You're pondering this. I can tell you've got that glassy-eyed look. Like I kind of want one of these.
Yeah. So I guess one of the familiar themes when I'm talking to people that come up is that this is just this is a micro business, and so the ham radio crowd is great for has helped us to build the business this way, because we could do some face-to-face. I could do the ham clubs. They're gadgety, so that means I may not have a smooth, beautiful iPhone interface, right? It's a menu, you got to click through it. But in the ham radio cloud, they're cool with that. And then the story that I would tell here, and I'm going to jump over to my PowerPoint. So this is a great story. So what I'm looking at here is a very smoky area where I was living in Oregon, very close to where you are, George. And so there was a fire that was coming through, and everybody was being called to evacuate. And there were rumors of people, like visibility was maybe like 40 feet. And so there were rumors of looting that was going on outside of the city, because the sheriff couldn't cover all the recently abandoned properties that had been evacuated. And just about that time, UPS pulls up in front of my house and delivers $250,000 worth of hardware. Doesn't ring the doorbell.
They never
knock
do.
On the door, and they just leave. And then my daughter wanders outside as people are packing, and she says, "Hey, Dad, there's a bunch of boxes for you by the garage door." And I'm like, "What?" And so I came out, and here are my long expected boxes. And so we hurry them inside the house, and here they are inside the house.
Oh, wow.
And my kids and my family are getting ready to go to Seattle for the in-laws, and I'm like, I'm not leaving. This is my life savings right here. And so, in fact, even today, every Atlas that's ever been kitted and loaded has been done in my basement, like in the room right behind me. So we all loaded it there, and then I just like they left, and I'm like, I'm not leaving. The house can burn down. So I'm
going with it.
I'm going with this. So I like unlock my shotgun. The neighborhood is abandoned. It's just me, and I spend the night there in the house, and downstairs are these boxes that are waiting. And then in the morning, I load up all of my everything, and all the boxes into the back of my little Ranger pickup truck, and fully aware that the value of the computers in the back of that truck is 1,000 times the value of the pickup truck itself. And unfortunately, I had a friend in downtown Portland who was not under evacuation orders, and he had a warehouse, and so he took the computers off my hands for a couple days, and then graciously returned them with his own company truck at my house a couple days later. But what I think is really cool is that you could see this drama play out on the Geochron. So what I'm looking at right now is a North American view, and I'm looking at the air quality index indicator. And right around the Pacific Northwest, it's red and orange because it's terrible. The terrible air quality, and it was because of those fires that I had to evacuate. And I think it's cool that you can see that on the Geochron.
Wow.
Isn't that neat?
That's interesting. It's, I'm sure when they dropped off when they dropped off the boxes, I'm sure the thought was like, oh my God, I'm really glad I got them, but why couldn't it be next week?
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
I know. And
I'm like, why can't the damn UPS guy like ring the friggin' doorbell? That's where I'm at.
Oh, if it's UPS, just be grateful they didn't like kick it to the door. And
yeah, that's true.
But anyway.
Yeah, no. My life savings is sitting on the driveway, and it's not locked up. It's just in a box. And it's like people are leaving the neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, all right, full stop. I'm not leaving.
Imagine if you had left an hour before.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I had never thought of that. Jeez, that would have been bad. I would have turned around. I would have come back. But no one would be there to tell me. So I don't know.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
It's not like you probably had a Nest doorbell to say box on the ground, right?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't.
Wow.
Well, your company and your story is very inspiring.
Thanks.
Yes, it is.
To go from your previous career into finding an opportunity here, and when you bought the company, not really knowing exactly what you were going to be doing with it, except there's something good here.
Yes.
And you really turned it into quite a little gem. So
the truth is that I still have a day job. So this isn't my only business.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, right. So the business that I started 20 years ago, by which I thought, oh, I'm doing really well, I think I want to get a Geochron, it still functions today. And so it's a small mom and pop business we run out of our house. And so oddly, I do telephone systems. And so I have multiple companies that subscribe so that they can get my voice on their telephone system, and so they can sound good. So music on hold or IVR voice attendant. So it's might be like, the vet down the street, or my biggest customer is DocuSign. So I'm the English voice for DocuSign. I've been the voice for Caterpillar. I've been the voice for any number of credit unions around here. So I still do that work. And so I was more interested. I'm like, it was just a little mom and pop. I was interested in the potential of Geochron, my potential within Geochron. And it certainly has stretched me as far as what I'm capable of.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was having AI created all the new voice prompts for our phone system, which are good enough, but that also explains why your audio is so good. And I don't know if my head's going, thank you for calling Flex Radio. So I might be calling you,
Thank you for calling Flex Radio. We appreciate your call. We'll be with you in just a moment. Like that.
Did you record that, Mike?
No.
I've got it.
Oh, good.
So I do like 500 productions a year that are like 6 minutes long. And so it's a great job. It's like a hot cup of coffee to me. I just love that little thing. I love that little business. But Geochron is certainly more expansive.
Probably can't afford you, but that's okay.
So the story of how you operate, and $250,000 worth of computers landing in front of your garage, and there's nothing funny about that. It paints a very different picture. But when I tried to reach you earlier this week to confirm our recording this week, I was greeted with a prompt that says, "Thank you for calling Geochron. We are a micro business," and I can't remember what the rest said, but micro business describes it really well. But I got to tell you, boy, you pull it off as if you're not. Good for you.
Thank you.
Some of the stories you tell, by the way, if you've ever worked in manufacturing anything, they're the same thing. Truck shows up, everybody's at lunch. There's nobody at the loading dock, or maybe it's just our shipper comes in at 4 a.m. sometimes and does a full. She gets up early, so it's not uncommon that the dock's not there, and they phone me and, well, I'm in Toronto, I can't help you open the door, right? And it's but anybody in manufacturing goes through. We were talking about supply chain issues earlier, and when they say I can't get my widget, they're not just sitting on their butt, because believe me, you want to ship finished product out the door as fast as you can, right? And George is going to run out of station controller soon, and he'll be type of thing. And so thanks for sharing those stories. I'll definitely let the people at work know. We've had the same thing, right? It's like something showed up on a Saturday and it sat out back.
Oh no.
Or and it was there, fortunately, but it was like,
when I first bought the machine shop, all the employees were really upset because they liked the previous owners and they didn't know the company was failing. And at one point, they locked me out of the building as the owner. They locked me out of the building, but anyway, so yeah, it's just small business. I mean, God love it. Long live small business. This is where it's at. This is how the country runs.
So, do you still have the machine shop and all that stuff?
Sure. So what happened was we were just got the high rents. It's not a real profitable enterprise, and so the high rents were killing us. And so we moved way out into Estacada, which is outside Portland, and that's a great little town. But the burden of developing and moving Geochron Digital along, and running the machine shop at the same time, and doing the phone music thing, it was about ready to kill me. So a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there was an old distributor that wanted to check me out. They lived in Colorado Springs. They were a legit clock shop. They had an extra 3,000 square feet, and so they took the machine shop. With our gloves on, we loaded it up into storage containers when we shipped it out to them. And so now they're still with Geochron, but I'm not involved with the day-to-day of the Geochron mechanical world. I still handle all the marketing. I do the phone systems for them. I do all that stuff, but they are the ones who actually know what they're doing. And I'm so proud that my best employee, who has the institutional knowledge of Geochron, moved from Portland, then out to Colorado Springs, and then recruited his brother to come out there and be a clock worker as well. And so that is a great story. That one made my life so much better. I'm so grateful for them.
That's pretty cool. So the Estacada site is no more. It's
okay. It's gone.
When you mentioned where you were before, by the way, the Red Soils, I assume that's the business park.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, Oregon City is a strange conglomeration of really cool businesses. So not only were you there, but that's also where Benchmade Knives headquarters is.
Across the street,
and Saber Forge that make Star Wars sabers.
Across the parking lot.
Lightsabers. Mm-hmm. So, when we moved to Oregon City, we're driving around like, oh my God, look at what's here.
So they got to be just like down the street from Leatherman and Gerber and all of those guys too, right?
So they're in the region. They're not, these are like literally across the street down the block.
Oh, wow.
So Leatherman is in Portland. So that's like 20 miles or 15, 20 miles.
Vince, you'd never get out of that area if you were there. You'd be like,
yeah, totally. Gerber's on the west side, like south of Beaverton somewhere. And there's another one that I can never remember that you probably know, Vince. There's another big knife company that's up here too.
Oh no, Rod knows this one. I can't remember the name of it.
That one. Who knew this was the mecca of pocket multi-tools?
Yeah.
Pocket multi-tools and pocket computers.
For a while, I did Leatherman's. I was the voice for Leatherman on their phone system.
Of course.
Thank you for calling.
Naturally.
Well, if you know anybody there, we want them to bring back the ES4 Squirt, which is a little tiny micro tool that has a wire stripper on it. They discontinued, and it was there you go. And it was
there's Vince's ES4 Squirt. I have two of them, and one of them has, it was a gift from my brother. One of them has a Radio Shack logo on it. It's been around forever. Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Please bring back the ES4. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate you.
It was a sad day when they discontinued that. You can buy them on the aftermarket for about 4 times the original cost. Wow. So there you go. Yeah. Anyway, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us and not only learning about the Geochron things, but the backstory of how you got there. And I think a lot of us, when we look at buying a product, it's cool to know the the background story. You know, who are the people that do this, and you know, how did they come about, and you know, what's it like at that company? Because if it's a product you really like, then it's cool when you really know something about the people as well. So thank you for sharing that sort of more inside baseball part of Geochron.
Thank you for letting me tell my story.
Well, that's great. And we're going to wrap up the show now. So, Patrick, if anybody wants to chat with you and learn more about the product, how could they get a hold of you?
Sure. So we have a really great newsletter system, and I write all the newsletters. They're personal, the good content, and you can sign up for them at geochron.com. And of course, you know, I'm at patrick@geochron.com. It's not complicated. You can send me a question. I'm happy to answer it.
And you might even stop by for a beer sometime if you're invited, or maybe not.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Very good. Mike, do you have any parting thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I'm glad you were able to make it, and I'm fortunate to have, you know, we have finally had an eyeball, well, a couple of them, but it made it a little more personable now, knowing the history of the company and having a few minutes to chat. But if you're ever at an event that Patrick's at, you do need to drop in and say hi, and let him take you for a tour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Vince, how about you?
Patrick, thanks so much for coming out and telling us the story. Very moving, very personal. Good for you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Patrick. So thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And so from all of us at the Ham Radio Workbench, 73.
73.
And,
I should have loaded up Mark's audio.
oh, I can edit that in.